For when they shall say, Peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 3. Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rachakodash. Double honor to our venerable apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and blessings to the Lord's elect, the house of David. It's a brother Haran coming back at you with a quick update. Lord willing and be edifying and uplifting unto the elect. All right, and just over the weekend, we saw the U.S., in this case Babylon, the great Trump, DJ Trump, the cruel lord, the king of Babylon, apparently shot up 3 different sites out in Iran. He bombed it up, and of course, put the whole world in a frenzy, but just typically, just questioning things, right? Typically, one thing that the American people at least should have been doing is asking for evidence. Okay, show us the proof of the reason why you went and bombed these places. We don't want to hear about they had it. We want to see that they had it. See, but they don't ask those questions. They don't question those things. They just sit here and stay being controlled. Now, there's a couple of things that I'm going to say that's just my personal belief, right? Number one, which is in this article here, they talk about sleeper cells from Iran. And of course, it's something that we've talked about as a possibility, of unwinding of events, a bunch of events, a sequence of events that's going to be hitting different parts of different states, different cities, and so on and so forth. I believe yesterday they were saying that the Americans were on high alert and that they had sent National Guard troops to different parts of New York City subways and so on and so forth. And of course, that's, I believe, through the spirit, that's the beginning, or at least the stage being set for martial law. Okay, because now you got LA, now you got New York, many different states are going to follow as well. They can go many different ways with this. And what do I mean by that? In the sense that they can just easily just start putting troops in the streets in the name or with the excuse that, Iran could possibly have sleeper cells here ready to go in America, and we're doing everything in our power to get ahead of it. So we're going to send troops out there who are going to start doing checkpoints, right? Checking people's IDs, checking people's bags, stopping people, questioning people, arresting people. You're going to see a lot of that. It's going to be a soft kind of martial law, so to speak, until inevitably something happens, which I believe is going to be an inside job that they will do in order to have an excuse to come against Iran. Okay. And because they have a lot of intelligence that they can stop anything. All right. They know, who's doing what at what time and when and so on and so forth, especially with Palantir and all that. They've documented a lot of information on everyone. Okay. So they know, who's who, what's what, and so on and so forth. So the excuse that we don't know if they're sleeper cell, they know who's who. But again, it plays into the narrative that they're looking for, which is to create chaos in order to bring that order. Order of chaos, right? So let's read this real quick. It says, what if Iran had chosen to activate sleeper cells instead of ceasefire, right? The war may appear to be over. President Trump's negotiated ceasefire between Israel and Iran has brought a fragile pause to 12 days of chaos. For now, the missiles have stopped, the rhetoric has cooled. Meanwhile, when I woke up this morning, I saw an article or headline that says that Iran was blowing up different parts of Israel right now as we speak, even with this ceasefire. Okay, now, with all these things going on, all right, there's a lot of conflicting information going on out there, which is done on purpose, all right, and for a reason, all right. It's called misinformation and disinformation, and that's how Esau operates. Okay, it's a war, it's a psychological war at this point, all right. One day you hear one thing, the next day you hear the opposite, so it kind of conflicts you to the point where if you're for some information coming out, and then the contrary comes up, it could kind of mess up with your excitement levels, if you will, right? But Through the Spirit, we have the prophecies to guide us and to show us what's what, and when these things take place, what they mean, right? So we know that these things going on right now with them talking about ceasefire and peace and all that, all right, it simply means what we just read, that something big is about to happen. Okay, that's sudden destruction. All right. It says, but let's ask the question few in Washington dare to utter. What if Iran had chosen a different response? What if instead of a ceasefire, they had activated sleeper cells already planted on American soil? And that's the thing, is like, they have intelligence on all these things. So in order for anything to pop off, the so-called intelligence agencies they're not going to be surprised by it, because they're the ones doing it. Okay, I believe through the Spirit that ain't nothing going to hit America if they don't allow it. If the Lord doesn't actually give them the go-ahead to do it, it's not going to happen. When you look at most things that have been claimed to affected America, when you look behind closed doors, they're the ones orchestrating all this shit. Pearl Harbor, what happened? Oh, the Japanese just bombed Pearl Harbor. Yeah, what happened though? It was it was more of what's the word I'm looking for here? It was more like they were. The word isn't coming to me right now. Let me find a different one. Provoked, right? They were provoked on purpose, all right, in order to get America into the war. Okay, I forget the president at that time, but he basically he knew that there was a deal that the Japanese had with Germany, and that if anything happened to Japan, Germany would have to step in. So they provoked Japan with I think it was some type of economic thing that the president had done, and that affected Japan, and they got mad. So they said, "Fuck this shit," So they attacked Pearl Harbor, and then America had an excuse now. Oh, see, we just got attacked. Oh, same thing with World War I. I think the U.S. Lincoln was sent out there into the English Channel, got bombed up. Right? They knew about it. They did nothing about it. They came back and said, "Oh, look, Congress, look, we just got hit. We need to go into the war." So I think a similar thing is going to happen where an inside job happens, which is reason enough to get the people riled up to send the guys to be drafted. That's number one. So it's an emotional attack, physical and emotional attack enough with the impact enough for them to say, "Okay, fine, let's go into the war." Because right now people don't want to do it. Most Americans are like, "Nah, this ain't our war. We don't want parts of this." A lot of Americans are like, "Isn't this the same guy who said, he'll start the war in a day when he comes into president? Now he's leading to another war." We told you this is going to happen. There's nothing he can do about it. Trump is never going to start the war. There ain't no ceasefire. He's not the guy. He's not the Most High. Okay? The prophecies state that America is going to end up in World War III. Iran is going to end up in World War III. Russia is going to end up in World War III. Israel is going to end up in World War III. So these countries you start seeing and hearing about, they all going to end up in World War III in that same area. Okay, the value of Jehoshaphat. So there's nothing they can say or do. So if they tell you, "Oh, there's a ceasefire," bro. How many times have you heard of a ceasefire being, violated, okay, by Israel, and yet you want to still keep making deals with them? I don't understand that whole shit. It's just the stupidest thing, because we know every ceasefire will get broken some way, somehow, at some point. If they already have deals in place and they come up and just rip the deals apart and say, "Let's put up a new deal," that's why Iran is pissed. They're like, "Yo, we already had a deal. This is in bad faith. Why are you tearing up the deal and putting up a new one in front of us talking about, oh, we need to do something better?" No, we ain't doing shit better. We already agreed on one thing, and we're going to leave it at that. So anything else after this, we're not even respecting it. So, at some point, Babylon, with her pompous ass, thinks she could just go anywhere and tell people what to do and how to live their lives. That's crazy. That's crazy. But this is why she's going to come to an end. All right. She thinks she can go around the world policing everyone, just like Rome did. Spread herself thin. You got military bases everywhere. Don't you know that you make yourself an easy target? Crazy word. All right. But let another country come do that shit over here. You see what happens. All right. But let's read. It says, because make no mistake, they could have, right? We often think of warfare in terms of jets and drones, tanks and troops, but modern enemies fight differently. They don't just build BOMBS. They embed people. For the last several years, America has made that job easier than ever before. That was done by design. Okay, ultimately to come against or to actually set up a system of so-called security, or in the name of security, we need to protect our homeland. We don't know who's who, you know, digital IDs, right? It's a whole new system that's going to be rolled out, okay, in the name of security, which is not going to do shit. Okay, it's not going to do shit. It says during President Biden's tenure, 729 Iranian nationals were caught illegally crossing the U.S. border, and nearly half of them were simply released into the interior. No meaningful vetting, no consistent detention, just processed and allowed to vanish. And those are only the ones we know about. You see, but they want you to know about that. They want you to think about that. You know, they want you to think about that because, look, like I said, the intelligence here in America is insane. It's on a whole nother level. Okay, because remember, through something known as a FISA report, right? It's something that allows these intelligence agencies to spy on foreign nationals for the protection of the homeland. But that so-called FISA report has bled into them spying on American citizens as well. Okay, all in the name of protecting the homeland. That's how they came up with the whole concept of domestic tease. Because they're spying on people, they're listening to people's conversation. They're like, hold on, wait a minute. People don't really fuck with what we're doing. They're not buying the narrative. We need to deem them some form of threat. Even though they're Americans on American soil, we need to deem them a threat of some kind. And that gives us the go-ahead to utilize certain things that we possibly couldn't use before because it would be deemed unconstitutional. But if we label you something, then hey, there ain't no constitution that protects you from what we're labeling you as. If you're a domestic T, you don't got no constitutional rights like that because you're a T. You see? Meanwhile, you haven't committed any form of attacks or anything like that, but they'll just label you that, and that's all they need. It's just a label. Okay? It says, according to former ICE Director Tom Homan, over 2 million gotaways entered the country during the Biden years. Foreign nationals who slipped past Border Patrol entirely. That's 2 million unknown individuals who could be anywhere right now. Right. We're just supposed to believe this and sit around here in fear, right? Oh, my goodness. Sleeper cells everywhere. They could be right on my next door. Oh, man, what am I going to do? Oh, shit. We need America to really step up their surveillance to protect us. My goodness. Fuck out of here. It's the same playbook every single time. All right? It says Iran is, and you know how we know this is all going to be a inside job? You pay attention to the narrative after the events, right? If you when you pay attention to the events that happen after the main events, right? It's always some bullshit that what ends up hurting the American people. They're going to come up with new laws, new regulations, all right? New surveillance things, whatever, on new things, all because that was the solution the whole time. They just needed the actual problem, all right, for a good enough reaction, which is what they're looking for, okay? To draft people into World War III and to bring in a new world order through surveillance and technology, okay? It's something that they couldn't just do right now or a few years ago. People will push back. So they have to do it in a deceptive way. They got to get your emotions involved and they got to get your sense of security involved. That's it. Okay? And those two things is good enough. Every single government does the same exact thing. If they want to topple a government or take over the people, they just have to push this peace and safety, this security. This is good for your security. We need to take away your rights so we can give you security and protect you. But those two things, you're not going to get. Rights nor security. Okay? So continuing, it says, and these Americans are not going to get that. It says, let me see here. It says, Iran is the world's largest state sponsor of Teaism. That's what they say. It funds Hezbollah, arms Hamas, and openly declares death to America as part of its revolutionary creed. And while Iran may... But why do they say that, though? It's not like America is like this good old country that doesn't do any wrong, and people are just saying, oh, we death to America. No. Look at the impact of what this country has done to the world, and especially people in that area that live over there. Think about that. And Americans will be, oh, why are they saying that? Soon, your own government is going to show you why these other countries call death to them. And when they say death to America, they're not talking about the American people. They don't care about your American people. They're talking about your governments that you vote in. They're talking about those so-called representatives that are all bought out by the Jays. That's what they're talking about. The people that make the decisions that affects you and your family, whether you like it or yes. That's what they're talking about. Okay? And very soon, people are going to put the pieces together. Might be too late then. Okay? It says, and while Iran may have agreed to a ceasefire for now, who is to say that it will not change in the future? It will change in the future. Ain't no ceasefire that's called last forever. You crazy? It says, what if Tehran had decided to retaliate not through airstrikes in the Middle East, but through coordinated attacks inside American cities? What if instead of calling for calm, they had whispered to operatives we may have already let in? It would be too late to stop them, right? And Second Ezra, the 15th chapter, talks about that. Okay, the Carmanians are raging, okay, and they shall destroy a part of the city. Okay, so you expect it because it's biblical prophecy. All right, it says this isn't speculation for the sake of fear; it's a reality check. Intelligence agencies have warned about the possibility of foreign terrorist organizations establishing operational presence through immigration loopholes. And this administration gave them exactly that. Well, when you look at the intelligence force, I believe it's called Aman, of the Israeli people, ultimately the whole intelligence force that they have is known as ISIS, right? Interesting, right? Right? When you look at them, their number one form of intelligence is a military intelligence out there in the so-called Middle East. Why? Because they're always interested in watching movements of troops in different countries and military trainings that may be going on, or whatever conversations they may be having. They intercept all that stuff, so they know. So if Israel has that, then the equivalent of what they have as Aman, all right, the Pentagon we have over here with CIA and all these different agencies, they do the same thing over here as well. So they know, they track everything. They know exactly who's doing what. Like I keep saying, ain't nothing gonna slip past them that they didn't even know. Fuck out of here. FBI, CIA, NSA, they watch everything. They snoop into everyone's business. So they know exactly what's going on, who's planning what, who's saying what. They know all that. So for you to believe that, something could pop off that they didn't know about, that's lies. That's BS. Okay? It's just another excuse for them to come up with some new draconian measures, man. That's all that's going to happen. And it's going to lead to martial law. Because they're going to lock down the city in the name of safety. Watch. Okay? Watch. It says, but it is not just Iran we need to worry about. Thousands of Chinese nationals have also crossed the U.S. southern border in record numbers during the Biden years. Many of them young, military-age men traveling alone. In just 1 month time frame, it was reported that over 4,000 Chinese nationals were apprehended, a staggering increase from previous years. And once again, the White House had shown little interest in asking the most basic questions. Why are they coming? Who sent them? And what is their purpose here? Because again, this plays a role into their narrative, man. You know what I'm saying? That's just all it is. It says China isn't just a geopolitical competitor. It's a regime that has hacked our infrastructure, stolen our intellectual property, infiltrated our universities, manipulated our markets, and launched spy balloons over our sovereign skies. But yet America didn't do nothing about it, did they? So again, did they really do these things, or are they just being told? People are being told that's what China is doing. Don't get me wrong, China can do these things, but are they really doing it? And if they did, do you think America is just going to sit idle and let China do all these things? Please. It says, how do we explain letting their nationals walk across our borders by thousands, unchecked and largely unnoticed? Because they are being set up by the American government, by the CIA, man. They all work together. All these intelligence agencies work together, some way, somehow, because they're working together against the people. All right? Are they refugees seeking freedom, or are they part of something else? Again, this isn't xenophobia. This is prudence. This is what national security demands. Rational inquiry, not ideological blindness. In May 2025, under President Trump, CBP reported zero illegal immigrants or illegal migrants released into the U.S. interior, a sharp drop from the approximately 62,000 released in May 2024 under Joe Biden. That number should send a chill down every American spine. So nobody's spine over here. We're not saying any migrants are threats. We are saying that allowing thousands from enemy nations into the homeland with little to no vetting is not compassionate. It's suicidal. Good. It says Iran chose a ceasefire for now, but if they ever chose war on American soil, the damage may not come from a missile. It may come from a man living in Chicago, a woman working at a mall in Dallas, a group renting an apartment in Queens. And these would be perfect because those kind of events / scenarios have been played out already to the Americans over the years, right? Of a so-called T attack. Those kind of events have already been played out. Oh, it was just a man who was working here, or a woman who was working at a regular store, So those kind of narratives are already planted in people's minds. So it's plausible. You know what I mean? Like, they could just do anything at this point and blame it on Iran and say, "Oh, the sleeper cells did it." It's an easy playbook that they can run with, very easy. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they did. So it says here, and our policies gave them the access. If there are sleeper cells already in place, they didn't arrive in secret. They arrived through a border left open by political ideology. They came in when America's defenders were demoted to paper pushers, told to process and release rather than apprehend and deter. So the real question isn't just what if Iran had activated sleeper cells, it's what if they still might, and what if they are not the only ones preparing to. Because while a ceasefire may end fighting overseas, it does nothing to neutralize the risks now embedded inside our own borders. That's why this moment cannot pass without serious, urgent reevaluation of our national security strategy. We cannot keep gambling with our safety in the name of political narratives. America must secure its homeland as if the next attack isn't coming from abroad, but from within, because next time it might be. You hear that? You hear that? So now already they have to start protecting from within. And that's why I'm saying that you're going to start seeing troops everywhere now. Okay, because now it's a plausible reason, right? Because the Americans are looking for protection. Then why is the government doing this? The federal government must do something, and the only option that will be left will be martial law. Okay, so expect all hell to break loose, violence at an all-time high. Cities getting hit. Targets. Places just being decimated, all in the name of an excuse to get a reaction from the people, so they can bring in their own solutions. Pay attention to what they're going to be doing. When you start seeing different states being, they got martial law troops coming in, talking about taking guns away from people because they don't know who's who might be a sleeper cell, and so on and so forth. That sleeper cell narrative could be used into so many different ways. It could be used in many different ways, man. All right. But again, like I said, always pay attention to what happens after these set events. That's how you know if it was organic or if it was orchestrated. Okay. And always pay attention. Notice how the news media can tell you, "Oh, we may have something like this happening." And then the FBI and them, they can also come and tell you, "Oh, we might have some people who sneaked in who are bad actors that could really harm, our main different places in this country and major cities and shit." It's just a weird thing to do, man. You're an intelligence agency, got so-called gathering intelligence information on your so-called enemies and shit. But yet, you can't stop them. You just go and tell the world, "Yo, we got enemies out here, yo. They could really do something bad to all of us. So we just letting you know." What's the point of having you niggas? If your job is to, get all this information and deter possible threats and shit like that, but yet you're going to report about the threats and then leave it alone, what's the point of having you niggas around here? What's the point? You know what I'm saying? What's the point? Because the media is telling us there's sleeper cells here. The FBI is also saying, "Oh, there's sleeper cells. We don't know where they are or what they could possibly be doing, but We just know that they're here and something could happen. So we just got to be on the lookout. Shut up. We don't want to hear that shit. Right? But that's for those who are in the know. Okay, this is all planned, orchestrated chaos. That's what's going to happen. Okay, that's what's going to happen. Let's see if I can get this quick precept here. This is the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 11. It says, lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. Okay, and his evil schemes, his plans, his agendas, his secret plans. All right, we understand these things according to biblical prophecy. All right, but also Esau's patterns. It's always the same thing that he does, and then we just catch on to it. All right, we just catch on to it. But yeah, expect some things to pop off, geopolitically, and of course, domestically, and just pay attention. Pay attention to everything that they say, and you can pick out the loopholes. See the parts that don't make sense. That's what kind of helps you piece things together. But yeah, we're just gonna keep watching and see what comes out of this. And this means that the MOTV must be that much closer. We'll see how they bring it about, but we're that much closer to it. Okay, we are in the later part of June, so we're gonna see what comes out of this in the next month or so. All right, but we're gonna be paying attention. Anyway, I'm gonna leave it out there. Lord willing, you are edified and updated. In closing, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Ruach HaKodesh, the water Yahweh Shai. Until next time, Shalom.